Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Nobelia.org. That is the website you have to check out. Phil Sabastian, our founder and creator of the site, the Wave Impeccability and Mourners Project, life-changing programs. He's also an author, a poet, and so much more, dedicating his life to helping people with mourners. Hi, how are you?
Yes, brilliant. We were just talking about mourners and mourners culture, because that's what I'm all about, sharing mourners culture.
And these are life-changing programs to help people really change themselves, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to share something very powerful with that. It's just a quick announcement that I'm going to be doing a TV show on Bold Brave TV, and it goes on all different platforms. And it's going to be the Mourners Show or the Mourners Culture Show. We're working on the name. So this is, you're familiar, you know them. So that's why I was just talking about you. They said, oh, yeah, so this is very cool.
Oh my goodness, you are worldwide. Excited to have you here. Really. Oh my gosh, congrats on the show. Congrats on everything. And clearly you're helping people live, as you say, deliberately, according to you. Tell us what you're all about. Go for it.
Exactly. Actually, I'm going to share something with you. It's a mind map that I made. Now, this living deliberately, this comes from one of the life change and self-change programs, the core one, the main one, the basic, the fundamental, and it's called Way of Impeccability. Our Way of Impeccability, obviously, by just the name, you can get an idea of what it's all about. But it's a toolbox for deliberate living. And deliberate living is a whole different mindset, because you have to enhance your awareness. You have to raise your awareness. You have to have, learn internally to be focused and be disciplined and be thorough and all the things that come with impeccability. Now, it's also about living in attunement. I'm going to show you this because the Way of Impeccability and everything that I do has got an underlying philosophy behind it. I say, wow, the philosophy, everybody's got a philosophy. Every country singer's got a philosophy.
Absolutely.
But in this case, there's a lot more to it. Now, I realize that many of you on the podcast aren't going to see the visual, but maybe then, make an effort to see it. But I'll describe it as best I can without needing to see it. But Jill, you'll see it, and those that are watching on where we are sharing on the TV, right, on the visual. So here's a mind map that I made specifically as it connects to Wave Impeccability. Now, there's a lot more to the A+ philosophy, but I'll show you now in a moment why it's called the A+ philosophy also. Right?
Oh my goodness!
And now, am I sharing? There we go. Right. So now you see there's a lot here, but I'll zoom in and we'll see a little bit. So let me zoom in and I'll go to the top of it here. Now this is the core.
Okay.
The core of the root concept is appropriateness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the size of it, right? See, appropriateness is in the biggest rectangle here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Attunement and awareness and application. And it all joins together, you see? It all links. And then you've got with awareness, you've got all that's connected to awareness. You've got attention, appreciation, the abstract, and in attention, you got to learn to train your brain. Self-quoting. This is all part of Way of Impeccability. Like there's a whole session on self-quoting, and self-quoting is an incredibly powerful thing. I'm just zooming in on one.
Wait, what is self-quoting exactly? Just explain that to me.
Yes, exactly. So self-quoting is when you learn to quote yourself in quotable format. And this is like, I'll give you an example. I have it right here. I've got a quote file that I've made, and let's see, it's fine. All right, so here's a quote that I made. The job is not to convince, but to provide options. And this is a quote that you can quote me on. And I didn't even put my name, because usually I assign these quotes to characters in my books, and then I'll at some point use it in one of the books. But still, most coaches, for instance, they think their job is to convince, but it's not. And actually, I was talking to a parent, and this applies to parents. Your job is not to convince, but to provide options. If you provide options and you provide depth to the options, and you say why and consequence and implication, now whoever's thinking about that, if you fully understand all of the consequences and the implications and what comes from your choice, you can't choose foolish choices, right? But if you convince somebody, they basically
Yeah.
now going to be doing whatever they're doing because they trust you. Yeah. But if you're mistaken and well, then you collapse your entire authority because you can be wrong on one thing. But when you present options, you never lose that because your trust is based on sharing options, not in convincing people. Right? But we tend to think that when you're in authority, you must convince. And this is being a parent, being a teacher, being a coach, etc. No, the job is not to convince, but to provide options. Now, so this is a quote, and it's something that I said to somebody. But the self-quoting comes from training your mind to think in a quotable way. Why? Because what is a quote? If we go into it now, you're asking quite a big question here because there's a whole session on this in way of impeccability, but I'll condense it as much as I can. A quote has got particular characteristics to it. It's concise for one, it's memorable for another, and really good quotes are also kind of poetic in a way, right? So we want to sort of train our brain to be thinking that way. And to think that way, if we look back on the side screen here under awareness, we had attention, we
Awareness. I'm
had the
looking in red.
abstract,
Abstract.
right? Right. And then appreciation, right? This all is part of awareness because you can be paying attention and also you need to look at abstract connects to all three, right? Now, in a quote, in most really good quotes, you are going to be connecting to the abstract in some way because you're going to come at things from the top down. You're getting to the root, the essence, which is when you abstract things, you're pulling out the essence, you're pulling out what really matters. You aren't quoting about something very specific and very detailed. For instance, I'm not talking about, what you need to say at your 6-year-old's birthday or something, right? That's a very precise thing, maybe. Or, when some life transformative event, first boyfriend or whatever, right? But those are very precise. But when you look at the abstract, you say, well, I want to share what's important. I want to share what matters. I want to connect to the bigger picture. I want to connect to who you are, to what matters in your life, what's important, etc. So the abstract is always the key. So when we understand this and we start to think this way, it makes it very easy for us to get to what actually matters and what's important and zoom in on things, right? And so this whole idea of self-quoting is to say that I don't want to be quoting other people because as long as I'm quoting other people, quoting Einstein or Gandhi or whoever you people are quoting, right? I mean, Einstein has got so many quotes attributed to him. I don't think he said a fraction of those, but nonetheless. But when you learn to quote yourself, you become your own authority in your life. And how can it be any other way?
Yeah.
It cannot, because as long as you're quoting others, you're living their lives. When you start to quote yourself, you're now living your life, right? And you become your own authority. You always are your own authority, but we don't think so. And that's a very, very negative space to be in. When you're in a space where you're doubting yourself and you don't have confidence in yourself, you don't have trust in yourself, you're not living deliberately, right? So therefore, you're never fully you. And of course, you're now living a half life, a partial life. But when you learn to self quote, you're not only learning how to think, to be, to feel, you're learning how to condense, you're learning how to connect to the abstract, you're learning how to connect to what's important, to what matters. And you can communicate, you can share it. Now you're in a whole different world. Right? So while I'm talking here, I'll just kind of scroll down and you can see it's just tons of these quotes. I have lots of them. Now, I just write them down. Sometimes I'll come back and I'll refine them and, and go into it in more detail. But, once your brain starts, and when we understand this, right, we've got awareness, we've got attention and conscious and deliberate. It's also about emphasis. And emphasis is absolutely crucial. Let me get out of screen share here so I can talk about it. Because self-quoting, you are learning to emphasize your own sensibility. And you are learning to train yourself to be sensible and to be able to really be able to condense what matters to you and put it into a usable format. Now, what does emphasis do? Emphasis is a superpower and it's the most incredible thing because emphasis literally rewires your brain. I'm pretty sure we've spoken about this on previous shows, but it's always worth repeating. Emphasis literally changes the brain wiring. I mean, literally. Like when you
Really?
emphasize something,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it takes the node that is connected to, like a node is where stuff is stored, right? And then you got the wiring that connects nodes, and that's how everything works. Much like my mind map, right? You get those big ones on nodes, and then you got all the connections. But it literally grows that node. So now that and connects the wiring, strengthens the wiring from that node to the other nodes. That's why when something is really important, like you remember when your first child was born, right? You can tell me every detail about it, right, Jill? I'm sure. Yes, or most mothers can, right? They
Totally.
can
Yeah.
say every single detail, or like 9/11. Ask people where they were on 9/11. They can all tell you, but ask them where they were on 9/12 or 9/10, and they're like, uh, no idea.
No.
I don't know what I was doing the day before. I have no clue.
No,
But they
but that
remember
day of.
exactly. Right,
Exactly.
exactly,
Well, for example, the other day when former President Trump got shot 2 weeks ago, everyone's going to
exactly.
remember where they were. Do you know where you were? That's
Right,
like a big
right, right,
thing.
right, right. Yeah. So it's anything that is emphasized and has importance to you makes changes your brain, right? And now you connected to that. So now when we start to quote ourselves, we are emphasizing our own sensibility, our own strength, what matters to us, what's of value to us, and that's what you want. You want to live your life, not somebody else's life. But also, the more you're quoting yourself, and especially if you make a quote file, and this goes hand in hand with the dictionary of power. And dictionary of power is something separate to the quotes, but they work together. But when you're starting to quote yourself, you end up with this collection, this file of things that are of importance to you or matter to you, and you start to realize, wow, you know what? I've actually got a view of the world. I have my own philosophy. This is what's important to me. This is what matters. And then you go to your dictionary of power, and all of those concepts on the mind map. Let me go back to screen sharing. These are all in the dictionary of power. Now, the dictionary of power comes from way of impeccability. There's a whole session on it, and it's something that you do. You know, it's one of the unique things that I bring in way of impeccability. One of the radical technologies or disruptive technologies, as they call it in the tech industry. Right? But it's important. So appropriateness, we put that in dictionary of power. Attunement. So your dictionary of power is where you put the term, the concept, and the broad abstract concept, right? And why? Because attunement is a power term. When you really understand what attunement is, and that's a whole show. I mean, next week I'll talk about attunement. But when you really understand what attunement is and you start to live via attunement, this is life transformative. And in self-quoting, right? See, that goes in the dictionary of power as well. Train the brain, which is emphasis, goes in the dictionary of power, or emphasis is the better term to put in there. The core term, attention, application, self-conception. When you start to see these terms have power, they change your life. Perspective shifting, oh my goodness. You know, to perspective shift and learn to be able to perspective shift. This is incredibly transformative because we typically just see things one way and then we only see the opposite. Yeah, man, it's like seeing life in black and white only. You miss out on all the glorious colors. So perspective shifting is perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. You see the little term next to it there. Perspective shifting is a magic wand, and it gives you full comprehension. See, like a little those the connected terms next door to this. It just fleshes out a little bit what perspective shifting means. Because when you only look at something from one angle, that's all you see. But when you learn to see it all the angles, right, 360, up, down, every which way, you now have full comprehension. And also, like I used this example before on the show, if you want to understand the floor plan of a house, but you only get to look in from the outside through the windows, if you look through one window, unless it's a very tiny house, I guess with the popularity of tiny houses, that would apply. But a typical house, you won't be able to understand the floor plan just by looking through one window. But at the same time, you don't have to look through all the windows to know the floor plan. You just have to see through enough. And that's what perspective shifting does. It's looking at things through the windows sometimes. Now, sometimes you can go inside, of course, but when you can't, and you're looking at things kind of from the outside. But at some point, your brain can put together from different angles. It can put it all together and create that floor plan, right? And our brain has this ability. So now when you just look at one perspective, you don't have enough information to put together that floor plan, right? Or the deeper meaning, the greater connection, the extra that's there, the moreness that's there. But when you have multiple perspectives, when you put enough of them together, suddenly it clicks and falls into place. And then you connect to moreness. See? And this is why perspective shifting is so huge when it comes um, to moreness culture, right? And this is all part of moreness culture. And of course, thinking things through to the end, because then you have that likewise. You get the whole, you get to connect to the whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. And much as this mind map, this is all parts, but when you put it all together as a mind map, it becomes quite profound. And you see, like when we look at there, this can be like the head, the top here, and all the different things. And you got the heart, which is your character, and then all the things that relate to, if we go zoom in a bit here where the character
Wow.
is, you see, you've got
How did you come
character,
up
and
with
then you've
all
got
this?
ways of
Like,
being.
well, I can't read it. I'm like, wait, hold on. Ways of being, attitude. Wow.
Right,
Look at
right.
this
So,
sheet.
attitude. So
This is
each one is,
impressive.
you got attitudes. See the lines go. See, you got moods, and you got all different moods. You got mindsets, you got attributes, perspectives, core characteristics. Now, this is all stuff we go through in detail. You see, earnestness, eagerness, unwanting. I've got eagerness twice. Modesty. Yeah, when I made the software, it's no longer available, so I couldn't go back and edit it. But eagerness is a very potent thing to have. Anyway, so it's all different ways of living, ways of being, and it goes down. It's like your heart over here, and then you go down to your roots, right? If you, at the bottom, if you think of it like as the head and the heart and the roots, and we get to at the end, yes, it all funnels down, and it goes into power and more. Now, power, obviously, I mean it. Power as in the ability to apply energy, not power as in dominance and having that power. That's nonsense power, and that's corruptive power. The power that we generally think of. No, real power is ability. Real power is competence. Real power is in independence of being. This is the point of moreness culture, is to get to independence of being. The point of way of impeccability is to end up with having independence of being, right? Which means you are self-contained. And I don't mean financially and all that, no, because you're not an island. I mean psychologically, emotionally, right? For instance, if you have independence of being, you cannot be insulted or offended. It's not possible. And I'm not, and anything that if you say nasty and horrible things about me, I'm not going to be all bent out of shape, because I know they're not true. And if they are true, I'll change. It's very simple. So independence of being means I'm not affected by su- um, uh, silly things, superfluous things, nonsense things, surface things, right? And it's very, very powerful. So there's a lot to it. You see independence of being down the bottom here. It's all part of, magic in not in the sense of like woo-woo magic or Harry Potter magic, but the magic that we have in just the magic of being alive. Existence, life is magical because it happens and we don't know how. And that's to me what magic is. When you're getting moreness, when you get
It so
something that you
is.
can't, yeah. Right, so there's lots of magic. I mean, your cell phone is magical, right? So magic, and when we really start to live in attunement, magic comes all the time. You have incredible things happen that you cannot explain, that are just like so synchronous, so awesome, so fantastic, so at the right timing. It just, you live in a whole incredible deal. Then we get to fluid reality. Oh, I can do a whole show just on fluid reality. Right? This is a, and so how I came up with this is a lifetime of thinking about things, right? That term fluid reality. It's something that
Yeah.
it's a term I've coined. It's, I mean, I don't, not all the terms necessarily original to me, but sometimes you need to create a term to describe what's happened. And fluid reality, it's a very idea, Buddha and Hindu, it's way back in Eastern, very much, all is mind, right? Zen, it's very Zen concept. But Zen is obviously comes from Buddhism. It's Zen Buddhism. We forget this, right? That Zen is Zen. It's part of the Buddhist culture. Anyway, so that everything is mind, and but this is also an Einsteinian idea. Think about it, right? E is equal to mc squared, which means m is equal to E divided by c squared. In other words, matter is energy that's divided or slowed down by a very large number, by a lot, in other words. And we know this, right? When you take like a gas and you start slowing a gas down, like your steam in your kettle, slow that steam down and you get water. Slow it down even more, you get ice, right? So we understand this. But now we're talking about when you slow energy, the raw energy of the universe, right? When you slow that down, you get the what we have now. And Einstein said this, that he said, really, everything that we have is a result of our consciousness, of our mind, right? So this is a very universal idea. So I call this fluid reality. When you start to unhook from the description that binds us, right? Because we have all these beliefs and ideas, and that's how we describe the world. And it's a joint cooperative thing. A lot of people misunderstand fluid reality, especially in like law of attraction. They think they can describe the whole world just on their own. Yes, theoretically you could, but you would need massive amounts of energy to do that, right? And so, but when you're in attunement, you obviously now you are in a space where you are doing things and the energy is much less required because you're in attunement. When you're going fighting against things, well, then you need to use more energy, right? So if you want something and that something is in attunement, then it's fairly easy to get. Right? So want what the universe wants for you, in other words. Very simple. So there's a ton of moreness here, ton of moreness. And now again, we're going on this very quickly. We're just touching on it, right? This is what if you do the program where we impeccability, then we go into all of these things in detail. And there are practical things that you do that allow you to train yourself to be different. Because it's no good just hearing things. You have to do it. You have to apply it to become it, to be it. That's because without application, it's all meaningless, right? Without application, it's all absolutely meaningless. Yeah. So that's why application is this key here, the nexus, right? You see it's like if you were to say it's the link here between where you go from the sort of theoretical abstract thing in a way almost, even
For
though
those of you
human
not on the
isn't,
Zoomcast,
to
you got to
applying
see
it.
this amazing spreadsheet he has here that
Yeah.
we're looking at. I know
Wow.
we keep talking about,
Mind map.
application this, but he's
Yeah.
got this all documented out, color coded
Yeah.
out in this beautiful, it's
Yeah.
the way of impeccability mind mapping. You have to, don't forget, go to
Yeah.
his website to find out more.
Yeah.
You can still
Yeah.
show it. We still have time. But just
Oh,
remind us
okay.
how we can reach out to you.
Yeah. Nobelia.org slash
Perfect.
supply.
All right,
That's
continue,
very
continue. I
easy.
wasn't
Very
interrupting.
easy.
I know you've been on a roll, so continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I mean, this mind map, this is a result of a lifetime's worth of work. Yes. Now, not just thinking about things, but applying it, testing it, checking it out, making sure it's there, right? And that everything that I've always done was always connected to being practical. Yes. So, a lot of people say, oh, you're a philosopher. No, I'm a practical philosopher. There's a very big difference, right? Because I don't care for theoretical philosophy. It's kind of like, I don't know, mind masturbation, really, if you think about it. It doesn't get you anywhere. It sounds good, intellectually, academically, it's fantastic, but you need to apply it. I saw this, and when I was at university, and I left university because of this. I went to psychology class, and the teacher, the psychology professor, was very knowledgeable about psychology. Really knew all the different schools. He knew about Freud and Jung and Adler and Maslow and you name it, right? But personally, his life was a mess, and it was a cliche. All the psychology professors, it was like a cliche. Well, they're always a mess, and personally in their lives. Why? Why? Because they thought intellectually knowing about psychology was enough, but no, it's not. You need to apply it. You need to live it. Just knowing about it, just having it on your database, just having it stored on your hard drive, this is not enough to change your life. But they believe this, and it's a common belief in academia that knowing, having the knowledge is enough. It's not. You need to apply it. Without application, all that knowledge of yours is absolutely meaningless, which is why it's a cliche that psychology professors are messed up in their personal lives. And I saw this in my personal life. I said, man, your knowledge is impressive, but I would not like to be you emotionally, attitudinally, psychologically. You're a mess. Sorry, I don't want to be you. You don't impress me as a person, as an individual, right? And this is why when we go around, sometimes you meet people that wow, this person is really cool because they've got this shit together, as they say, excuse my language, right? But there's no real better term for that. But when you have your stuff together, you now are being able to apply and live and be, and you're not connected to the knowledge. But you get a lot of people that talk fancy, that sound fancy. It's not about that. It's about being able to apply it. So all of this mind map is geared towards application. And really, the ultimate application is appropriateness. When you have the ability to be appropriate. A friend of mine asked me, he's actually a philosophy professor.
Okay.
And he said, well, what do you need all this awareness for? Because I'm so focused on awareness, right? Everything's about awareness, the enhancement and development of awareness. I said, because the more you enhance and develop your awareness, the better you are able to be appropriate. And, oh, I get it now. Oh, oh,
Oh,
oh. And it
oh.
clicked for him. It just fell into place. And living in attunement is the ultimate of being able to live appropriately. Because now, when I say, well, what is appropriate, I have to go according to my idea of what's appropriate. But I know my knowledge is very limited. Attunement is living according to universal idea of what is appropriate. And the universe has access to universal information, so I don't. So now I can be appropriate according to what I don't know. Isn't that awesome?
That is. How long did it take to develop this spreadsheet, by the way?
This mind map, you mean? To actually put it together, I don't know, this was a couple of months worth of work, but the content is a lifetime's worth of work. That's over a lifetime. Way of impeccability, the course, I think I put that together. It took me about a year, maybe a year and a half, I think.
Okay.
And then I have other courses too. I was just talking about it earlier. I've got a very specific course for life coaching. And especially if you want to learn to be your own life coach, it's called Hearing and Helping, capital H, Hearing and Helping. And this is very much designed for life coaches, but also for individuals who want to be their own life coach, because you learn to hear. And when you learn to hear, you start to hear the universe. And when you hear the universe, you can live in attunement. So it all works together. So yeah, very powerful courses, very, very programs, because they're programs rather than courses. They're a minimum of 4 months, but typically they take a year. Because you want to change your whole life. You're not going to do that on a weekend retreat. Yeah, I know we like this idea that we can do it in a weekend or a week, but no, because it takes time to change habits. Way of impeccability really, really focuses on habit, and all of what you're seeing on this mind map, all about changing those core habits that we've grown up all along. We got to go. It's 9:00. But yeah, that's a good place to end.
Always a great. You are on par. Sabastian, how do we reach out to you? Oh my goodness.
Nobelia.org/connect. Very easy.
Oh, a pleasure having you here. Great actually visually seeing this map because it makes so much more sense. And I hope the people that are just on the podcast can tune in, can go to your website to check out this episode to see. And is the spreadsheet on the website too? Or no?
The
That's
mind
part
map?
of the program.
No. I don't share this actually because there's so much that's unique to me. It's like very precious. So
absolutely.
I don't generally share it out. I don't have it on the thing. It's like just. I mean, all right, I'm sharing it on the episodes today. I suppose people could copy and use it, but yeah, it's a lot of proprietary information on here and the way it's all put together. But
it is beautiful, a masterpiece of work, and clearly it's helping so many. Thank you again. #Moreness Project, Nobelia.org. Sabastian, you have a fantastic day and can't wait to see you next week.
Yes, you too, Joe. You too.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day, darling. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think,
to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.